You're listening to Mentor Moments, where we talk about all things counseling, technology, education, and career development. I am Braden Wooters, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Michael Keener. Grab a seat, and let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Mentor Moments. My name is Braden Wooters.
And I'm Mike Keener. Thanks for joining us.
We're here.
We
were just catching up on life. I guess it's the part where we do some witty banter, but we were already doing a bunch of witty banter. What were we? I guess
we were like you said, giving life updates. I'm sure our fans want to know that my wife Aubrey and we went to the home show, right? Because you never know what part of the house you want to redo, So we've done a pretty good job. Like, we have new siding, we have a new fence, we have a new deck, we have a relatively new roof. So maybe new windows, right? New windows, maybe some different entryway flooring. We have a new carpet. My wife got a new fancy pillow. That was the big purchase. We almost got some knives. I don't know if you ever, when you cook, because you need good knives, right? That's a good wedding gift. Not that I'm pushing anybody to get married, but, usually you get knives when you get married. So
I'll keep that in mind. I just graduated to like a full set of like pots and pans this year. So I think that's like I'm maturing. Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm trying to think of like what, like all the stuff that you'd see at a home show.
Well, people who do painting or siding or concrete work, generators for your house. We had a great conversation with a guy maybe getting a generator that, we have fish tanks. We need to make sure that are running if the power is out. And of course, you have air conditioning or food, and power does go out sometimes in St. Louis for long periods of time. So it's like the Boy Scout in me, be prepared. Like, this was just all a lot of bathroom remodels, kitchen remodels, like redesigning your closets. They had somebody there was selling pinball machines. So then you get to play with, like, you don't buy them, but you get to play with the pinball machine. So that was,
you see, that's the coolest class. That's where I would be. I'd be in that area.
Yeah, I sat in a sauna for at least 10 minutes. Well, because everybody needs a home sauna.
Those are really becoming super popular now.
I know, yeah,
and like somewhat accessible. Like, from what I've gathered, more accessible now. Like, because there's those small ones that like you can almost like build yourself.
Yeah, these were sort of like the high end, because I've seen some that are like the $300, and then there's ones that are sort of like the cedar that you can order that are like 1,000. But these were like 7,000 to 12,000, sort of big fancy models, multiple people, and we could have had a party.
Sauna party. Well, I'm also not going to let you just get away with the fact that you mentioned fish tanks. I didn't know you had fish tank. What?
So I am going to give a huge shout out to my wife. My wife was in a sorority, and her sorority name was Dr. Doolittle. I think I should have realized when we were dating that meant I was going to be like Mr. Dr. Doolittle, right? And so we have a parrot, Lido. He's a Pioneer parrot. He doesn't really talk like you think, but he does sort of mimic. And we have 2 huge cages for him. So one I call a jungle gym, so he can kind of climb on it, and one that he can go into if he needs to be like shut in or where he sleeps in. And then my wife through the years has had like fancy goldfish, so mini koi and other fancy goldfish. Right now we have puffer fish. I mean, how cool is that? And you don't want to get them to puff up, because that means that they're angry, but like they are kind of fun to kind of watch swim and kind of eat snails and stuff. Axolotls, are you familiar with an axolotl? Yes, we have an axolotl. And then of course we have our lovely dog Pippa, who's a Chinese crested, who we shaved her this week. It's like she's a hairless dog, but there is parts where we needs to groom. So it's like a circus dog, we call her, because she likes to hop and jump and prance. And
it's so funny because I don't know, you think you know so much about somebody, and then you keep learning more about them that you just didn't know. And maybe you mentioned it to me and I just completely glossed over, but I was just always like, yeah, it's just Pippa. But there's all these other.
The fish tank, it's so very, peaceful too, just sort of watching the fish and swim, so it's good sort of for mental health. And my wife loves the plants too, so we have lots of great oxygen in the house from all the plants. And of course it just looks great, like all these great different kind of plants and flowering, hit this. And
I'm so glad that you brought up fish. Got something to show you.
Because you're a fan of the band Fish?
Okay.
You have a tattoo of a fish.
You're close. You're getting warm.
You have a necklace with a fish on it.
Nope. This is an empty fish tank. It's been a little bit since you and I have chatted, so we've got a lot to catch up on. As you can see, it's half empty and the pineapple is on its side. This is because I had this great idea to get a fish for my office. Great idea, you know. I do a question of the week usually with all my clients, so I usually have them like I was gonna have them like, what do we name the fish? Went to PetSmart, bought a betta fish, got all the stuff I needed. But I filled up the tank with some tap water, but I left the like conditioner stuff, you know, the stuff that makes the water livable, I suppose. I left it in my car and I was just thinking, you know, surely it's a walk down to my car to go get the stuff. The fish is already in the water. Surely it'll last 12 hours because I'll come back tomorrow morning for work. I was wrong. I was very wrong. I showed up that morning at 8 o'clock in the morning and that fish was super dead. It did not last more than 12 hours under my care. Oh, yeah. So, of course, I had to grieve, I had to cry, I had to work through all those emotions. I had to get rid of the fish. Obviously, there's no fish in there anymore. I kind of had to, like, pour some of it out. So now I've got this really sad looking, um, half full fish tank. I don't know if I'm ready yet personally, like emotionally to get a new one. But yeah, so that's I think I'm learning more trial by error, unfortunately. It just happens to be that the error is
My wife's first job was at a fish store. And so I think, next time when you're ready, let's dial us up. We'll get some digits going, drop the digits, and we can get you some advice on fish care.
right. And I even chat you see this is where we all come back to it, right? I was in my office, I was like, I don't know if I can let it be without like the conditioner. So I chat GBT'd it. I asked chat GPT, I said, hey, got this beta fish, like will it be fine? Chat GPT, she was like, beta fish are hardy fish and they will not die. They can last through anything. And I was like, okay, I trust you.
So to use some scientific inquiry, we didn't have a control. So we really don't know if maybe that's sick or that fish was sick.
Right. Or the temperature of the water too. Like I kind of like tested. I was like, this water's a little cold, but I don't know. I'm grieving.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm glad you did that, but I'm sorry, you know.
It's okay. Um, how about transitioning to a moment of the week? What do you think?
Sure. What's your moment of the week?
You want to go with mine first? It's not a good moment. So I feel like this whole episode is just like me giving bad news. So how do I explain this? Thursday, it's not really of this week. Well, this was last week, exactly last week. I woke up around 5 o'clock, couldn't turn my neck, couldn't turn my head. It was the scariest thing. I'm a bit of a baby, first of all, with anything that's like bodily pain. But I woke up, my neck was like this. Like I couldn't, like it was stuck. And if I tried, like even by a little bit to turn it, just pain, just shooting pain all down my neck. I had never, ever experienced something like that before. 5 in the morning, I don't know what to do. And so, and at that point, and I don't like to mess around. If it was something else, maybe I would have waited, but it was the neck. So I was like, no, I'm not going to wait till like 8 o'clock for an urgent care to open up. Just take me to the stupid ER. So they take me to the ER. They give me some muscle relaxers and some meds. They call it torticollis, and that
That's the condition.
yeah, that's what they said. They were like, you got torticollis, and essentially that just means that you got a crick in your neck. It's a fancy word for saying yeah, and so luckily, like the muscle relaxer, like by the time that like I left the hospital, like I could turn it, like I could look forward, but still just lots of pain. So they had to give me like an anti-inflammatory and stuff like that. Anyway, and one of my buddies, John, he's a chiropractor. So I texted him and I was like, hey, like as I was explaining to him like my symptoms, he was like, oh, you got torticollis. I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, well, that happens. He was like, that typically happens to guys after they turn like 30. He made it sound like this is just gonna have to be like part of life for me. He was like, yeah, I've got it. I had it like once, like for a week, and then another time for a couple days. So I don't know if I'm just gonna have to get like used to waking up looking to the left all the time. But yeah, so that was my moment of the week was just aging. Any moment of the week for you?
Well, I'm going to share two things. Okay. One's going to be a hot take. Let's do that one first.
Okay, hot take.
Okay. Netflix the movie Jerry Seinfeld's Unfrosted. It's the story of Pop-Tarts.
Huh. Tell me more.
Well, it came out maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it's an acquired taste. When you watch it, it's just sort of like, "Am I really watching this?" But I watch it almost once a week now because there's just so good it's filled with comedians, and there's just lots of little silly jokes, like, it's family friendly. I mean, that's you can watch it with mixed company, there's no swearing, and it's so anyways, that's my hot take for everybody. If you watched it and thought it was terrible, give it a second try. If you haven't watched it, watch it again. Unfrosted.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the cast. That's a big
Has
cast.
Gaffigan's in it, and Melissa McCarthy, and
Jim Gaffigan, Hugh
Amy
Grant.
Amy Schumer. Like, it's
Oh yeah.
Cedric, St. Louis, right? Isn't Cedric the Entertainer from St. Louis? So he's in it, and
Wow. Okay.
so
That's my recommendation. I'll put that on my list.
yeah, put that on there. Now, more importantly, I don't know if it's more important. And I was going to make it sound like I'm egocentric here, but last Monday, so it's over a week ago, I did my friend Kelly Ahuna from Mentor Movement. She did a podcast. We were interviewed by Concordia University on AI and education based on an article that we co-wrote. So I don't know if I shared that before, but it was just a fun conversation with other educators about, again, how to think about and integrate and help students take responsibility, what can faculty do. So
Was I reading something about like was it regarding like academic integrity? Was that what I was reading?
that's Kelly's job. So yeah, so Kelly is the head of academic integrity at the University of Buffalo. And the article was based on like, how do we use AI as a one of many tools to help us think, but yet we also need to develop these meta AI skills so we know how to evaluate and we don't use it to for nefarious reasons.
Very slippery slope. Yeah, that's cool. We'll have to put a link to that if we can in this episode for sure. And maybe this whole episode's really really rough, and I want to.
These are the best kinds of episodes, right? Like, let's just
I guess so. Yeah. Well, I just don't know if it's like too much, if it's too political to get into. But like you and I both working on campuses, the whole Charlie Kirk assassination and just like the impact of that. And I'm mostly speaking from like a student's standpoint of like I'll have like just how that has affected like safety and like thoughts on safety and spirit of open debate in on college campuses. I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but like a lot of my week has been just kind of like chatting with students. I mean, because typically they're bringing it up because it's such a big thing, and that's where a lot of my thoughts have been is just like where culture from a campus standpoint is heading. What is supposed to be a safety thing is now I don't know. Like it's I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts or if any of this is resonating or
well, definitely resonating and like I said, hopefully that's one of the many goals of higher education is to teach about differing points of view and listening and cultivating and growing. Being on sabbatical, I'm not in the classroom, so I haven't had those interactions with students. So I guess I'm sure obviously again it's everywhere and students are talking about it and it's impacting it. I guess I think about it like you said before from even now just like safety reasons of going anywhere, right? Like we again maybe taking things for granted. I don't it sort of is a side note and not necessarily maybe helpful to this discussion, but when they were building this new building that we were in, they were testing the security system, and they didn't realize that when they were testing it, it was going out to different parts of the university. So when we were in our old office, we had basically, they didn't say it, but it was the go to your office, lock your door, we have an active shooter on campus sort of sound because they were. And so some of the campus got it, some of the campus didn't. And I can remember going in with two other colleagues and we were just kind of joking and laughing and making noise. But then we realized, well, if this was really true, we shouldn't be joking and laughing and making noise. Like we need to start thinking about are we barricading the door? Like, what's an exit strategy? Like those things that you're taught, to run, and then where are you going to fight and all that kind of stuff. And then I guess again, like the seriousness of that, again, you just don't think that's going to, right? We would say, I just never thought it would happen.
Yeah. No, 100%. It just makes me think too about like, I'm also starting to think from like a parent's standpoint as well. I don't know. I just wonder about like moments like this. Like if, I don't know. I don't know. Because I just remember whenever like I was like touring universities, that was something that my parents was always like, is it safe? Is it a safe place to go to? Is safety, safety, safety? And I just wonder about like when stuff like this happens, do universities like feel like they're on like super high alert of like, no, we promise our campus is safe, but like it's campus. No, it's not like just one building, like a high school. So it's,
I'm sure I'm not saying I'm sure. I know just from listening to our different presidents, the stress that they're under every single day. Like, okay, if somebody's calling, is this because somebody's hurt or again, if there is something dangerous or whatever. So like I get that. I think one thing that benefits Maryville is we are, even though we have over 10,000 students, where a lot of that is online and we're sort of secluded into this business park versus maybe, like Lindenwood, you're a little bit more integrated in the community and open to the community and a little bit more spread out, where again, Maryville's a little bit more, I guess, protected. Like again, if you've never been to Maryville, you drive past on Conway or the highway, you don't really know. So we sort of benefit from that a little bit, but
yeah.
not that things don't happen, but
hmm Yeah, I've just been having so many conversations just about like freedom of speech. You're we're at like the Jimmy Kimmel stuff, and I don't know. It's just I'm afraid to give like a big perspective other than it's just worrying.
I remember, I guess, was it 2016 when President Trump was first elected and that's when a lot of the discussion was going around social media and whether whoever it was, whether it was the Russians or not Russians or who, whatever, right, were like saying that they were making these artificial posts, right, to change our thinking, or at least that's what I thought. And I'm like, that's not going to change my thinking. And I guess I originally thought they were trying to say if you were leaning left, you would then lean right, or lean right, you would then lean left. But what I realize is these if these posts are true, it was really trying to get us more ingrained into our own belief systems and setting up biases towards the other, not trying to convert you. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure I've fallen into that, right? Like where you sort of, I can't believe that, or I can't believe this, and it sort of digs you in to your trench a little bit, versus being, remember, everybody's human,
Mhm.
and it's like everything. What's the conversation or the debate, and how can we listen and be respectful and
Yeah, yeah. I had two thoughts. The first thought was, yes, you are right. From a monetary standpoint, yes, I do believe that that is what's happening. Like algorithmically, I do believe that like most social media content is, especially YouTube, is like algorithmically situated to where to dig us into our own area, to dig ourselves into maybe our own left or right side. Um, and then to continue to enrage that person, because the more enraged you become, the more time you spend on it. The more time you spend on it, the more ads they can run on it. The more ads you run on it, the more money you make. That's just the way that the algorithm is unfortunately set up. So that's just something that I've noticed, or I try to be wary of like, is this, what is the content that I'm consuming? And media literacy, I think that's something that I'm not saying, but I need to be saying more of, is like media literacy and AI literacy. Lindenwood just sent out like a test or something to all the staff to like measure their AI literacy. And I think that's something that would be just an awesome, just an awesome topic to talk about on an episode, is like, what is, first of all, media literacy, and then second of all, like, what is AI literacy? Um, because like when people hear it, I think the first they just think, oh, can you tell if something's AI or not? But like maybe a little bit deeper, because I don't know if you've started to gain like a second sense for it, but like I'll scroll through Instagram and I'll read something on Instagram and I'm like, that was made on ChatGPT, like 100%. Just by the amount of emojis. And I don't know if that's like something that you've started to pick up on too. I'm saying a lot there, so I want to get your thoughts.
Well, you made me think of a couple of things. I think I am getting better at, well, I mean, some pictures you just can sort of just tell it's AI generated. I've also gotten better at, people have helped me, and I've gotten better at detecting large language model writing. Using 3 adjectives is sort of common, using a dash. I guess there was a couple other things, that using contractions, like I don't use contractions, so, that's easy when I, like, if I use it, I'm trying to put it back in my voice. It's like, okay, I need to make sure I take out the contractions and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think we are getting in tune, and we're sort of going off our original kind of conversation a bit, but I just found an article, and I was just trying to find it on my desktop, and it's not right at the tip of my fingers, but it was proposing that a new theory that we needed, like emotional IQ, right? That we could have empathy and kind of knowing that, and that we also need that to integrate that with digital competencies, and both as a way to maybe use it to help increase our empathy, but also to recognize when the technology is harming our IQ or emotional IQ. So I thought that was just sort of interesting that they were proposing they did. But something else we said and other shows that we've talked about, how AI always gives you, if you have an idea, it's the best idea. Or do you know there's actually a term for that? Hmm. Okay, this is maybe this should have been my moment of the week, right? Syncophancy. Sycophancy. Syncophancy, right? And so that is, it's the tendency to exhibit, in this context, refers to propensity of models to excessively agree with or flatter users, often at the expense of factual accuracy or ethical consideration. So again, being overly, that is the best idea. I think everybody should download Mentor Moments.
And it's weird because like I'm trying to think of like what else in the world like I could like associate that with. Like, oh yeah, we've seen this in this other technology, but I really can't think of another time where we've had something like that.
Well, I guess the only thing I would say, to me, there's a balance, because I think I said this before. Getting told, as long as you have the ability to kind of separate, it is a little bit of a, it is flattering, or there's some self-efficacy or like, I'm glad you think I have a good idea. And then makes me want to research it more. Right. So to me, yes, you don't, if it's giving you false information or unethical information, that's one thing. But I think there is sort of a benefit of helping you increase your curiosity to learn more. Anyway, so that's, I don't know, that's where I went when we start going from that last.
I guess shifting gears a little. I don't know if I want to say this for Counselor's Corner. Actually, I'm not going to. I'm just going to maybe like drop like a quick thing that I want to get your thoughts on, and maybe we can devote a whole episode to it. But it's what my next newsletter is about. The question that I'm posing, or that I am writing about, is how likely is somebody to recommend their own therapist to somebody? And that's the question.
I was going to answer it by asking you a follow-up question.
Okay.
Do you think it would be more or less than you would recommend your eye doctor, a restaurant that you like, or MD? Like I guess I'm interested to know what made you think about.
Yeah, no. So I mean, I've got a couple friends that have been asking me for recommendations, and I was thinking about like, well, if I had like would I recommend my own therapist to somebody? And then it got me thinking about, just because exactly what you're touching on. I feel like it'd be easy for me to recommend my own plumber, my own yada yada. Of course, if they did a good job, if they were really good, then I'd be like, yeah, of course I'd recommend my own, dentist if they're really, really good. I think what I'm touching on a little bit is this desire, I think, for some people to almost individualize their relationship with their therapist. Maybe there is this, like, I think, internalized fear that my relationship with my therapist is unique and I don't want somebody else to have, or like, but essentially it's like either not ownership, but like,
Yeah. What about like a pastor or a church?
mm,
Because to me, there's some similar, like for those of you that go to church, whatever, I'm sure the pastor, or priest,
Yeah.
they're with, marriages or deaths or births or divorce, like they're
Mhm.
with you through very significant life moments.
Yeah, I think, and you might be able to speak to that more than me, but because for me, I just think about, well, my therapist knows so much about me, and now I don't know. I'm just thinking about that, and that's the second half is like, what's the data say? Like, how like if it's a positive experience you've got with a therapist, how likely is somebody to recommend that therapist to somebody else? And I'm just so curious about like the barriers to that, and I don't know if it's like I don't know. I'm having a hard time verbalizing all these thoughts, but that's what I'm gonna write about.
Do it. I bet the process of getting those letters to the words to the computer will help you think. But I don't know, like the only thing I could think of too, in addition to, or maybe a difference between a pastor and a counselor therapist, is still like the church is still more open, when their service or there's multiple, where again there's something one-on-one ish
Yeah.
with like, so there it's, and I wondered also for some people if it's also, if somebody asks you, they have to know that you're either going or you had to tell them or you outed yourself. So I wonder if some people don't want, if I didn't know you were going to somebody, if you say, hey, do you know of a therapist or a counselor, would they say, oh no, I really don't, because they didn't want people to know that they were going?
Yep. And that's why.
And the first side, when people ask me to now, to ask students, it's hard for me to say yes because I have so many students obviously that are, and it's like, well, who do I say to or not to, and all that kind of stuff. So
So hard. And I think the reason why that question's coming up for me is because I've been like I've been like thinking about like marketing, private practice and stuff like that, and like word of mouth, and like how likely somebody is to word of mouth, yada yada yada. Anyway, I want to be mindful of time. So are you okay if we shift to counselor's corner? Is that all right?
yeah, counselors corners,
Okay.
counsel it up.
Any advice, recommendation, thoughts?
Just because it's my, again, sabbatical, and I'm always constantly thinking about is using AI for good,
Hmm.
right? And not for nefarious reasons, and just really kind of think about, going back to what my friend Kelly always says, is there a trust barrier that we're breaking? I don't know if I have a more specific example. I guess, again, teaching and learning, am I using it in a way I shouldn't? That's breaking some kind of trust. Like, is it okay for me to use AI to grade versus me grading? And then students, is it okay for them to, again, where's that gray area on creating their own work or not? So
Hmm.
that we're rewriting social norms is another way to say it.
Trying to think of like big themes in my sessions recently. I think it would just be, it's been a while since I've been like pursuing a certification or licensure. There's something I like about letters at the end of my name. And maybe that's some internal exploration I need to do on my part. Maybe that's my my internal need to prove something. But
Maybe your parents should have named you, after somebody and you could have been the second.
right, I just need some Roman numerals. That's what I needed. I think it would just be a reminder to clinicians to keep learning. It was something that I've started doing now a lot more. Is just like I'll see letters at the end of someone's name, and then I'll say, "What does that mean? Why did you get that? When did you get that? What? How have you seen that like be helpful?" I did that with my boss, and it's just been a while since like I've explored that again, just because I've just been getting used to the new job. So, any resource review, any big books have you been unpacking?
I really haven't been, it's been more of these articles that I've been exploring. So I don't necessarily have a resource.
I have been reading Outlive. Well, I finished Outlive by Peter Attia. It's about longevity and health span versus lifespan and what that means, and the difference between like medicine 2.0 versus medicine 3.0. And it's just a nice reframe. It's just a nice paradigm shift of more proactive healthcare as opposed to reactive healthcare. And I see that a lot with just, I think, my generation. My generation, I think, is just so much more health conscious now. And I say health conscious as in like, maybe they have a lot of incorrect information or a lot of correct information. And so it's just something that I'm noticing a little bit more of, which is nice. So That is my book recommendation. Any mentor moment before we log off? What are your thoughts?
Find your mentor. Be a mentor. Do good work. Be a good human being.
Have fun. Have fun. Have fun. I have so many people that are like stuck in things that they're doing and they're not fun anymore. I'm like, that was the whole point. That's how you got started in half these things that you do. Have fun. Get back to having fun with your stuff.